Welcome to Punchboard Paradise, coming to you from the heartland of America in Omaha, Nebraska, where we discuss the world of tabletop gaming, the topics that affect the board game community, and give honest and fair reviews of the industry's hottest games. In episode 62, the Punchboarders talk about some recent plays. We reach into Richie's mailbag for a question and then review Marco Polo II. Hey everybody, I'm Clef.
Hey, I'm Chad.
Nah, I'm Richie.
So, no Big Ten football.
Oh, we're just going to start off with a bummer?
Right
we're just take it right down.
For all of those of you who do not care about football or sports right now.
This is your year.
Hey, Nebraska might go undefeated.
That's the only way.
Oh, shut up. Whatever. National titles. Do we need to talk here, Chad?
Okay, we can go back. I know you're a fan of history, so how far back does that go?
What? Okay, 5 national championships. How many does Ohio State have?
7.
7. And how many does Iowa have?
1.
Ooh, let's see. Numbers.
A long time. No, they don't even have 1, really.
On another note, I think we took a little bit of heat for our draft topic last episode, where some people kind of disagreed with some of our picks.
Well, I don't think it was heat. I think everybody had it was open to interpretation, and everybody had a different interpretation, which is great. That's kind of what we wanted, I think.
Yeah, it garnered a lot of good discussion.
Yeah.
As far as what that, the low rules, high strategy. Because honestly, I mean, Chad's picks were a little crazy, but
Sure. A little crazy.
But like Castles of Burgundy, when you said that, my initial reaction was that you're wrong. But I have taught, as far as a 2-player game goes, I have taught it and played it in under an hour. So it kind of fits. So I mean, it really definitely depends on your group and your, what you're used to. And
right. And for us, I suppose, because we do play more heavier type of games, for us, yes, a game like Castles of Burgundy or even a game like Stevenson's Rocket. Okay, maybe not like a game like Stevenson's Rocket, but other games, they seem low rules overhead to us, just high strategy, as opposed to somebody who maybe doesn't play those heavy of games, that's still a lot of rules for them, before they can actually understand the game.
I mean, Knizia really doesn't do that many rules to his rule sets. He is not known as a complicated, heavy game designer.
No, but definitely, especially since he doesn't play anyone else's games, they can be his rule sets can definitely be unique where they don't have that same kind of familiarity that you get from other games.
And that was my point with that one. I mean, especially because, you have a shared language for a lot of these games, worker placement, that sort of a thing. And, when we think of pickup and delivery or track laying or route building, we kind of think of it as a different animal generally than the rule set that he does implement in Stevenson's Rocket. And that was true. So it might feel a little bit foreign if you've played a lot of games, but if you hadn't played that many games, it's not that much to digest, honestly. But I digress. We will talk about the draft later, I'm sure.
Oh
yeah, we're definitely going to talk about it later.
Oh yeah.
All
Richie,
right.
Richie, you got something good?
I got it.
You got something good.
I got
his
punishment.
Fine.
Moving on.
It's coming.
Richie, I just want you to know you haven't gotten your ice cream bars from me yet. So.
Oh, that's true. Well, I mean, if you bring them over here, I probably won't get to them.
Yeah, that's right. Well, if you would just listen to me and keep them in your eyesight.
Hey. I'm going like day 9 here. No, I'm doing no sweets, no desserts, no anything.
I was here 2 days ago.
Okay, that was my dinner.
And I saw
I had
2
a donut.
boxes of donuts.
That wasn't mine. That was Brent.
He just said
But
he had a donut.
You had a
though.
donut. I think you might have had 2.
That was the only thing I have eaten of sweets in like the past 8 or 9 days.
Okay, well,
so I'm
that's
trying to be much
something.
better.
That's
okay?
good.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay.
I will applaud your attempting to be better.
Hey, I've lost 5 pounds. Okay,
Good job,
there
buddy.
you go. There you go. All right.
Good job. All right, but what have you been playing? Because I don't care as much about that part.
Well, I tell you, the only thing that I literally have played here recently is more coin games, and that's just because that is what is so hot right now with my play group. And so obviously last time I talked a little bit about Gandhi, and now I've gotten in a few plays of Liberty or Death. It has a subtitle of the American Insurrection. So it's all about the American Revolution. And wow, I mean, I'll definitely talk about that. But then also I've gotten in Oh, about half a game of Pendragon, which, whew, I tell you, talk about trying to figure out the battle system in that thing is tough. I will tell you that. But anyways, we'll talk about that in a future podcast. I'll talk a little about Liberty or Death. Coin game, same type of, mechanism where, you got a deck of cards and there's 4 different factions. Everybody plays a different faction. But the really different thing about Liberty or Death is it is a much more of a team game. You have 4 factions, which one is the British, one are as they put it in the game, as the Indians. Then they have the French, and then you have the Patriots. And the British and the Indians are basically considered allies, like in battle. And then the French and Patriots are allies. And honestly, a lot of the French, especially before there's a certain way that the French can enter the war, they don't actually start in the war. To start with, all they're really doing is helping the Patriots. Like they're giving them things to help them get going before they even enter the war. So it's a much more kind of a team type of game. The other day when we played one of the games, Richie and I were on the team. I was the Patriots and he was the French. And we just steamrolled them.
We were too good of a team.
Too good of a team.
Nice.
Too good of a team.
Who was the French, did you say?
I was the French,
Yeah, Monsieur
which was,
Lafayette right there.
Yeah. And,
right.
I like that the fact that they did not even start on the board. Mm-hmm. And I had essentially 3 actions to choose from on my turn, and you're just basically preparing for war. And then once your casualties, or once the British casualties get to a certain point, I can come in. And that's what I'm kind of concerned about, is getting the British casualties up to hit my win condition, essentially.
Well, I'll be interested. We'll have to do like a 1 week thing, because my game of Imperial Struggle is hopefully going to ship soon, and we'll have to play Imperial Struggle and then play the American Revolution, because there's a whole side thing about the French helping, just to be a thorn in the British side, in that game. So there probably some nice carryover. But
sounds good to me.
I mean, this the way you talk about it, though, it sounds like it would play pretty well at 2-player as opposed to some of the other coin games.
Absolutely. In fact, one of our people in our play group, Brent, he absolutely just says it's a 2-player game. And I can't necessarily disagree with him, because you really can play it as a 2-player game much easier than, say, some of the other coin games, because in some of those, maybe your factions are not exactly perfectly in line, and you might have to be doing a little bit of different things to try to help both of them out. But in this one, it's really the same. Like the French and the Patriots' objective is just to have more support I think it's by like 10 or something over the British. And then they have a couple of little sub goals or whatever that they have that are a little bit different than that. But really the main goal is just to get that support. And then the British, the same way, the British and the Indians are both looking to have more of the British control and then have a couple of different things. So it's much more of just a team give and take.
Now, Richie, was this your first full play of a coin game?
No, my second, because I got to play Gandhi all the way through. So, definitely my second, and I liked it both. I'm full in on the coin system. I now own 4 coin games.
and
I'm about to P500 the 3rd edition of Liberty or Death.
This does not surprise me nearly as much as Clef's declaration for this. But yes, okay, I understand this. Now, how I would be interested to hear from both of you how you would characterize, other than the kind of the team aspect that you talked about, how you'd characterize the differences between this one and the other ones you've played. Richie, for you, I know that's just Gandhi, but what are a few of the high level differences that you could talk about maybe easily? I
mean, with Gandhi, it was definitely that there was 2 factions that were non-violent. With this one, obviously, like Clef was saying, that there is definitely more of a team aspect. Whereas in Gandhi, even though it's kind of the same, there's 2 factions that they kind of need each other to kind of get things rolling. But I was directly supporting Clef. Like, he got his resources taken away early on, and one of my actions is I can spend my resources to give to him. So, you are just directly helping them. Whereas in Gandhi, it's, you're indirectly kind of getting each other where you need to be.
Yeah, definitely the biggest high level difference, which I've already talked about, is the fact that it's much more of a team game. Now, it also, one of the biggest, where in Gandhi, battles were pretty. There wasn't like any battle sheet or whatever. You just
No, it's very easy.
Just did whatever 1-to-1, whatever the case was. Where in Liberty or Death, there's a battle sheet, and so when you go in to do a battle, first of all, you go through all these checkpoints of, okay, what is your total strength? How many pieces do you have? Then you do have a little bit of randomness in the fact that you do have a die roll, and for every 3 pieces that basically you bring into the battle, you get to roll a die that's it's a 6-sided die, but it only has 1 through 3 on it. So, 3 being the best that you can get. But you continue on, and once you then get to the actual battle, after you roll these dice, then you go through like a series of each one of these questions, like, okay, was there a fort involved? Was there a leader involved? Oh, that's another thing is everybody has leader cards or leaders, not card, but leaders that you have. And those can make things really powerful. And in fact, one of the reasons why I won so quickly is I had a very early battle where I had my leader, George Washington, obviously good old GW, ready to, come in and kick some butt. And we won the battle, and I won it really decisively. So then after you get through all these different points, then it goes down to win the day. And if you win the day by having more of your, more pieces of the opponent lost than yours, then you get to go through and say, okay, well, you get to change the opposition by so much, and then you get to do this, and you get to do that. And then after all that, it says, oh, and by the way, if you had George Washington as your leader in this battle, do it all again. Because he's that powerful. The Patriots are, they by far, I think, are the most powerful, the force in the game. At least, I don't know. It's tough to say after.
Yeah, it's tough after that game, especially since it went so quickly. The British they can get their forces ramped up extremely fast.
I would think they have the resource, a strength.
Mm-hmm.
The British
did,
does.
and the person playing the British, first time playing the British, so he was still trying to learn too. And I'd played it a couple of times, and so I kind of got lucky a little bit in that fact, because really then we kept playing after that just because we wanted to get a little more experience. And then, boy, all of a sudden the British just were all over the place. And then I went and did a really stupid battle with Washington and lost. And I was in trouble. I didn't have anything on the board at all after that. So.
But you still pulled it out. And and once again, as far as that team aspect, once the French entered the war, I can control his units. Like, I can attack with the Patriots units. And also, if I'm in the same area when Clef goes to attack, he can count my units as far as that battle sheet goes. So, it is very much a team game, it kind of seems like, until it's not.
Well, that's interesting. So, Richie, did you win since you helped him, or did he win on his own, or how did that work?
No, he won on his own. Basically, when it came down to it, he had 7 points, I had 3. Because mine, like I said, my main win condition would have been the casualties. So I needed more casualties to come with the outright win.
And I had forts or something more.
Yeah,
than
yours were forts, and I put out all your forts.
And you did, yeah.
Basically.
But nice I think if we really said, we felt like it was kind of a co-victory, really.
Yeah. No, I felt good
because we both had the winning condition when it came to it.
Right.
And then you just go down to points or whatever.
Exactly.
But I don't. Yeah, it was one of those things where we definitely worked together to do it.
Yeah, with all these coin games, it's one where, like, I want to play the same one a few times in a row, just to kind of get down the strategy. Then we wouldn't have that fast end game where one faction is getting out of control just because everyone knows what's kind of going on.
Yeah, it's kind of like, to be much simpler, it's kind of like Root in that way. Once you know what all the factions are going for, you know how to kind of combat that a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah, and and I tell you, when you play the same coin game, a few times, it obviously then gets easier, because especially if you play the same faction, then you really can start to know what your power, your abilities are, and what your commands are, and your feats are, and different things like that. So it does make it a little bit easier, because I'll tell you guys, I thought Liberty or Death was kind of a lot when I first learned it. Well, when I first learned Cuba Libre, my eyes were like, whoa. And then obviously Gandhi was like, whoa, and then Liberty Death a little bit more. Ooh, just wait till you get to Pendragon. Oh boy, talk about a battle sheet. I need like one of these 16 by 20 battle sheets with every point on it just to. But that's another day. I'll talk about Pendragon.
I've heard people talk about playing that solo. I cannot imagine playing that one solo.
My
just
goodness.
From what I know of it. But Richie, tell us what you have been playing besides Liberty or Death.
Knox is in. He's in on board games now. I taught him.
Ooh-wee.
I'm on sabbatical now. I'm day 4. I think I'm day 4.
All
By the time
right.
this comes out, double that. But
Tell everybody what a sabbatical is for us who would never, ever get a sabbatical. What exactly is that?
so at my job, every 5 years, you get a month off. And I had planned this a while ago. I was going to go to Gen Con this year, and then I was going to go take the kids to Ohio to visit my folks. So, that's all out the window. So now I have a gigantic to-do list from Jessica daily, and I play board games. So that's all I've been doing. But Knox was he asked to play a game because he was in between school and summer camp. He was home for a week, so it was just me and him at home for a week, and he was asking about some of the games that I had bought like right when he was born and put up. Outfox, it has been his favorite so far, which is like a little deduction game. So I've been playing, we played it 3 times in one day, and he basically asked every day to play it. But we played Outfox, the Robot Turtles, and Ticket to Ride, the First Journey.
Oh, okay.
So he's in. I think he's in.
Good
I think
going,
we're good.
man. Good going.
But as far as adult games go, I got in I finally got my Clockwork expansion for Root in. And got in a 2-player game with one of the bots with Jessica. So and if you ever played the original solo game for Root, it was not that good. One, it was complicated. The bot had a hand of cards essentially that were faced away, and you'd flip things over, and based on that, you would do certain things. They've gotten rid of that, and this was all essentially from the Better Bot program, which was just a fan-made expansion. There's just to try to improve the bots and bring in the other factions as well. And I mean, they did a fantastic job. And you can go on BGG into the forums, and you can kind of see the whole process in there. But with this, if you like 2-player Root is terrible. I think I've played 2-player Root with Chad.
Yeah, I played it with you.
I mean, it's just not good. One, you can't really use any other factions except for the cats and the birds.
And then you have to switch.
And then you have to switch, and then whatever your cumulative score is your score. But it's not good. With this, though, I mean, obviously, it just turns into a 3-player game, which I would say my favorite player count for Root is 4, but I'll also play 3 as well. 3 or 4 is kind of the sweet spot because you go around the table quickly, and you can play with a lot more factions. That makes sense. And it's not chaotic. It doesn't go on too long. But with this, it made that 2-player game now viable. It made it to where it basically feels like a 3-player game where you have when we played with the cats and the Automated Alliance, which is the Woodland Alliance from the original game. And it has a cheat. Someone's going to run the sheet, and technically you could play with more bots. So if you wanted to, you could you can add as many bots as you want. So you could play a solo game and have 3 bots. I don't know if I would do that. But with the 2-player game, you could run 2 bots and have each person run a bot, and it wouldn't be that hard. You flip over a card, and depending on the suit, it will tell you what to do on the sheet, but it runs really smooth. They did a fantastic job with it. I would highly recommend it if you are looking to improve like the 2-player game, or if you get together a lot at 3 players, if you constantly want to have that 4-player. It's a home run. As far as just the solo, I did run a game where I had 2 bots and myself, and it was good. It was still good. It was way better than the original solo play, but still with Root, I want other people at the table. But now we can play Root 2-player, and it's enjoyable.
Ooh. I'm going to have to get this for sure so I can play me some Root solo here.
All right, well, we can cut that part out. But my other question to you then is, if you haven't played Root that many times, is it still pretty easy to implement the Clockwork thing?
Yeah, I would say even if you haven't played Root that many times, if you understand Root, and for the most part, not much changes as far as like with the cats, they're pretty much like their sheet is just like the original sheet, like if you were playing as a human. It just has some automated things in there that are going to happen, and you just put them out. And you also have difficulty levels and traits that you can add on to each faction as well. And they go like easy, medium, hard, and then nightmare. The nightmares, I've read those cards, and I have no clue how you would even come close to winning, but I'll have to give that a try one of these times. But yeah, I would say even if you've only played a couple of times, as long as you understand Root, then you could run this pretty easily.
Cool.
So what have you been playing, Chad?
Well, I, like you, have gotten to game with my people mostly when I'm not gaming with you guys, so not a lot new, unfortunately. Clef just needs to close his ears for a minute, and I will tell you about what I played with my son, because my son asked...
Does it start with an M?
No, it's not
Okay.
Munchkin. I mean, I have played that, but that's not what I'm going to
No, I
talk
was
about.
going for Marvel.
I was thinking about
Champions.
Marvel as well.
Yeah.
I could talk about that, but I won't because now I actually got some text and some talk on the Slack about how they enjoy me talking about champions, but I won't go there. That's
Yeah,
fine.
sure. Talk away. I could use a little nap real quick. Yeah.
Well, first I'll talk about something that Clef would like even less. And Finn had been talking to me about the fact that he just wants more story in games, but you have to be real careful with him because he doesn't like to sit still for that long. So 60 minutes is like tops for him. I got the second edition of Pathfinder, the adventure card game. And so,
nice.
yeah, we played the intro scenario, the three of us, Stephanie, he, and myself. And we played that. And, it's fine. As far as the mechanisms, what you're doing is you have your own deck and you're picking out your deck, and your cards are your life as well. So once you finish your deck of your adventurer, you're dead if you can't draw any more cards. And what you're doing is you're kind of going to these different locations and trying to turn over cards from those locations to beat villains and henchmen and close down those locations. Because if you defeat a villain, he will run to another location. And so you're trying to either guard it or lock it down. And then when you complete that adventure, you will level up your deck, basically. You'll get add-ons to your deck. And so that's honestly the most interesting part. Is it's kind of like a campaign. It's like made to be D&D with cards. So your adventurer will get to new things. And the story's not even really that strong, but Finn is excited about like using this character next time and getting this card that they'll upgrade to their deck and that sort of stuff. And there are a lot of different characters. Some of them have, little animals as allies and things of that sort. You're doing little mechanisms where you're deciding to spend cards to increase your die rolls, because that's another thing. It's die rolls, and you can really get shafted on the die rolls. You can mitigate it some by these blessing cards, but you can do that as well. And then you can also give people other cards that might help them with their checks to do stuff at different locations. So that's one of the things I've been playing. And then the other thing that Finn really wanted to play is we did get the Hulk expansion and the Black Widow expansion for Marvel Champion. And Hulk is a fun character because he just does tons of damage and can't hold cards, so you have to use all your cards every turn when you're Hulk. And Black Widow is fun because she just basically has these chaining combos that she's figuring out how to do back and forth, and you're drawing cards back up out of your discard and just fun stuff like that. Both really good expansions if you're into the game.
Cool. Well, you know what we haven't had for a while?
What's that?
A little Richie mailbag.
All right. Well, let's find one of those. Richie, you got anything in that mailbag?
Yeah, I think I got something in there. So we got an email from one of our patrons, Corey Acklin, and the question is, after playing games many times and discovering a strategy for victory, do you continue to play that strategy every time, or do you explore alternate strategies? And then he just kind of continued here. I figured playing alternate strategies won't necessarily produce victory, so is it worth it to you? How much of playing games is about winning, and how much is about exploring what the game has to offer? So, Clef, when you kind of find a strategy, is it hard to get away from it if it always works?
I guess, it depends on the situation, I guess, and depends on like if I'm teaching, new players or whatever. That's one of my times where I like to try to do different things, because obviously I'm not just trying to just win the game if I'm trying to teach new players. But if I'm playing a competitive game, like if me and you are playing, Santa Maria or something,
that's what I was thinking.
I'm not going to try something
we
new.
don't pull punches in Santa Maria, and we go for the jugular.
Yeah, we're out to win. Like I said, I think it depends.
I love that you guys instantly thought of the exact same game. That's pretty funny.
We go at it with Santa Maria.
We go at it. Which we got to get back to it, because Richie's beat me the last couple of times, and I'm itching for a victory here. But overall, I don't. And winning is not the end all of me playing board games. It is, I try to win most times, but I don't. If I have a good game where I might lose by a couple of points or something, I'm much happier than that, as opposed to just throttling my opponents and crushing them. That's not very fun in the long run. So I would like to try different things. I don't know. Chad, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, just by virtue of the kind of game player that I am, I don't get to play games a lot. I play often, probably more than most, I guess. But in our group, I probably get the least amount of plays. I would just say, though, that by virtue of having a board game podcast and us liking to play new things, I'm always up for exploration. That's the kind of gamer I am. I would love to play for mastery, but it also doesn't necessarily fit my personality. So that being said, when I play a game, I want to explore all of it. And if there is a strategy that I feel like is stronger than any other, I'm probably not going to like that game as much. I like games that I feel like there are at least a couple of strategies that feel viable anyway. And if I've won with one, then I probably want to try a different one, for example. But again, that's about the exploration of it. You know, that's one of the reasons I love Gaia Project so much. If I've won with one faction pretty handily, then I definitely want to try another one that I don't really know how to play as much. That means all of them right now. I know that Clef is getting ready to say something.
I couldn't help it.
But
I'll keep my mouth closed.
That being said, Richie, how do you feel about it?
I mean, I kind of feel the same way as if the game has a particular strategy that always wins, I probably just don't want to play that game all that often. I'll probably stay away from it. I usually, whenever Clef says, this is not a good way to win, then I try to win that way. I either want to try to take the hard way to a win, or I'll just pull levers. I mean, I personally don't care about winning. Like if I'm sitting at the table, I really don't care about winning all that often. Santa Maria is one exception. And if I'm online, Nippon, just because Board Game Arena ranks you, and I'm trying to get higher on that. I think I'm like ranked in the 40s or 30s. And for Palaces of Carrara, same thing on Board Game Arena. I think I'm ranked like 14th because no one plays that game. So so those are the only times that I will care about winning, and I will do whatever I have to do to win in those two games online.
Because I say, Nippon, you obviously have a strategy that you know how to.
Yeah. And online, I don't pull any punches online because I can't lose to Clef online with that. I can lose to him in real life, but I can't lose to you online in that.
Well, I don't think you pull any punches during the live games either, because I can't remember the last time I won.
Well, I'll play with now that it has like new factories through that expansion. Like I'll just mess around with those factories. I have no problem doing that on there, but those aren't online. So
sure.
The only person that Richie is behind in Palaces of Carrara is somebody named the real Wolfgang Kramer, I think. So, that's pretty good.
No, and Richie, I that's one thing I love about playing games with you is it's always fun for me to go like, well, nobody's done this, and then Richie is going to do it whether it's good or not. I remember
usually it's not good.
Yeah, I remember Cooper Island, me saying, no one's built the stronghold or whatever. So that's all Richie focused on doing. It didn't matter that he was going to get crushed. He's like, I'm building that stronghold. So,
we've kind of, I've kind of learned since then though, so that the smart thing is basically to say nobody's ever taken 10 loans in this game. So
when it comes to loans, I'll take the loans.
It's kind of like in Back to the Future where they call Marty McFly chicken.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm going to do it.
All right. That's a good mailbag question.
Yeah, thanks, Corey, for that question. And if anyone else has any other questions, you can send those to punchboardparadise@gmail.com, or you can throw them into our Slack, or even throw them into our forum on BGG, Guild 3227.
Well, before we go on to our next segment, really quick, I just wanted to follow up on our discussion from last podcast, and we posted on some of our social media, but if you don't follow the Guild or if you don't follow our social media, I just wanted to kind of add on since we had our discussion on racism at the board gaming table, a good friend of mine reached out to me and suggested a book called So You Want to Talk About Racism by Ijeoma Oluo. And so I've since read it since then, and it's honestly exactly what we were talking about. And so because we kind of fumbled around with the topic and tried to suggest some stuff, but if you want to hear a little bit more about it or you want to read further about it, she addresses a lot of the things we talked about in the last podcast with great detail and spot on, better than I could ever talk about it. So I'd like to encourage you to look at that if that's something you wanted to talk about. There's a chapter in there called What If I Talk About Race Wrong, which is exactly what we were thinking about. There's also one called What If I Hate Al Sharpton too, but that's actually really, really great. And so I just wanted to encourage you to take a look at that.
Okay, well, we got some new patrons.
Yes, sir.
All right. And Well, as the patron page says, Chad, you get to read them.
Well, our 3 new patrons are Joe Farrell, Mark Hain, and Jeff Foreman. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for being new contributing members of the Punch Bunch. We really appreciate you, and we're getting that much closer to the recording equipment that'll allow us some flexibility.
Yes.
So, we really appreciate that, guys.
Absolutely.
And as always, if you cannot support us monetarily in these times, we completely understand. We appreciate your likes, your listens, your sharing us on social media, and all of those kinds of things. Reviews are great too. So thank you so much, Punch Bunch.
All right. I think it's now time for our feature review of Marco Polo II. How many times have you spent more time getting your board game set up than playing it? Well, if you have, then you need an insert from 3D BitSpace. They make great ones from Marco Polo to Grand Austria Hotel. You can even contact the owner, Ryan, about a custom insert. So head on over to Etsy.com and search 3D BitSpace. And when you order, also send Ryan an email and mention Punchboard Paradise and receive a free hex tray. Get to playing games and not setting them up. All right, Marco Polo II is a 2 to 4 player game. It is approximately around 60 to 90 minutes, and it has 5 rounds in it. The game is a kind of a sequel to the original game, Voyages of Marco Polo, which is obviously why it's called Marco Polo II. And it's basically same type of mechanics where it is a dice rolling worker placement game with your dice. So it has a large map with some different action spaces, and it has some travel area, and basically you're rolling your dice, and when you go to place your dice out into certain areas, then you will be doing certain actions. Like I said, like traveling in Asia to get special different other powers and also unlock other places that you can place your dice for actions. Then it's got a place where you can go and get different resources. It's got a place you can go to get money, camels, which help you travel, and pretty much and then contracts that you get to do that will score you points and also get you different benefits. You play, like I said, over 5 rounds. At the end of the 5 rounds, whoever has the most victory points is the winner. This review obviously is a lot of this is we are going to be, which we're going to talk about Marco Polo II, don't get me wrong, but this is going to be a lot of, what is it comparisons to, one of all of our favorite games in the Voyages of Marco Polo. And, but we're going to start off with how we always do. And so we're going to talk about just this game to start with, and that's the art and components. So, Richie, what was your feelings on the art and components in the game?
As far as art goes, it is the exact same art as the original game, Voyages of Marco Polo, and it's fine. I was never wowed by the art of that game, but the best thing in this game, and I would say honestly, I would buy it just off of this alone, is that the Italians, they typically use, with resources, they'll have a smaller one and then one that's like slightly bigger but you really can't tell that it's slightly bigger. And
right.
This time they got the proportions right, and the one that's worth 3 resources is gigantic, and then the normal resource is much smaller. So that alone, I'm in.
I'm kind of hoping that they make a Lorenzo Part 2 so that they can make
that'd be
the pieces
great.
Right with
exactly.
that too.
Yeah, and I would spend, whatever you want me to spend, I'll spend for those pieces by themselves.
Yeah, no doubt. Chad, what was your thoughts on it?
It's typical of a Z-Man game in the fact that I think it's laid out pretty well. The instruction booklet, the manual is fairly easy. I believe it seems like it's language independent, right? There's no text that I can think of.
Yeah. Yep.
So, it does a pretty good job with that. The iconography is fairly clear once you understand it, especially if you're very familiar with Voyages of Marco Polo in general anyway. I would say there's nothing detrimental in this production. I think it's pretty good, and I'll just echo that. Yeah, the resources are much better, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I'm going to unfortunately say exactly what you guys are saying. The art it's there. It's in the iconography. I think they did a fine job with, but absolutely those pieces. I'm honestly just thinking about buying another copy of it just so I can replace the pieces in the original one, because it is so annoying for those ones that are just barely. They did great. It is so easy to tell the difference. So kudos there. Keep doing that. Any other productions that you guys make. So absolutely great. So let's just head straight into gameplay. And we'll, like I said, we'll try to make sure we're talking about Marco Polo 2, but obviously we're going to have some comparisons to the original game too. So Chad, in your thoughts, gameplay?
Well, one of the things that Marco Polo II adds is Jade. So you have that Jade as an added resource, and it is used for a lot of things, but one of the things that it is used often for is a resource to help you travel. One of the things that it seems like Marco Polo II was put out for was in order to make travel a little bit easier to do. One of the criticisms for a lot of people, not anybody at this table, I don't think, but one of the criticisms for a lot of people was it is too hard to travel. Contracts wins most of the time. I don't necessarily feel that with Voyages of Marco Polo, although the board setup did encourage you to kind of look at what you were going to do. And I think that's actually, as a side tangent, that's actually typical of the Italians. They give you a board setup that you really have to look over at first, whether that's the card layout of Lorenzo or even Council of Four, where you really had to look at how you were going to build up your routes. You know, they always like to have a variable board setup that you have to study before you start the game. Regardless, I think this game is easier to do both travel and contracts. It just doesn't feel as hampered or as tight, maybe. And that's not necessarily a knock on the game. It just is a different way to play the game, I'll say. Richie, what were your overall thoughts on gameplay?
I mean, I enjoyed the game, and you still definitely have to look at the map before you really start taking your turns and start moving towards things. But I like the different action spaces that they put on there that aren't necessarily in Voyages. As far as the guild seals, I do like that idea of, and this is part of that, being able to travel easier. I do like that idea where you can get that seal, which now grants you access to certain routes on the board that would not be available to you otherwise. You still have to pay. It's usually money that you have to pay to use those, but it does make travel a little bit easier. And then outside of that, it didn't, like, nothing really changed for me as far as like the gameplay. If I sat down and you said this is a new variant, like a new board, just like with Concordia, how they sell new boards and there's a couple of rules changes, and this is an expansion for Voyages of Marco Polo, I would not know the difference for me. So as far I still love the gameplay. There are some different action spaces out there that are interesting. The only thing that really, and I would be curious if this ever changed for you guys, is that start player is now where it used to be. If you were the last one to travel, you became the new start player. In this, you have to use the very top travel space, which requires 3 dice. And in my games that I played for the review, start player never changed. So I don't know if that ever changed for you guys. Even I just played last night a 2-player game with Jessica, and she was a start player for the entire game, just because it didn't make any sense for me to waste 3 dice to take that away from her.
It is a very expensive action to take, and it hampers you drastically to take 2 of your other possible actions away just to get start player. Yeah. Especially in a 2-player game where you don't have a whole bunch of people going in front of you.
Yeah. Definitely it's very inefficient is what I would say. Well, on that, I'll hit that subject here real quick before I move on. I've gotten in 7 plays of it, and, a few of them have been at 2-player, and the only person that has ever taken that spot is my friend Brian, and he's taken it like 4 times. He's yet to win a game versus me, so I don't know if that says anything about it. That is probably my biggest knock on the gameplay, is I'm not sure where they thought that was a good idea, especially in 2-player, when going second is not that big of a deal. I mean, you're not that worried about spaces being taken. And, maybe in a 4-player game, you're going last. You might be like, well, I'm going to sacrifice 3 dice because this is really hurting me. But boy, I don't even know if it's worth it at that point. So I'd be fine if they had that as the option of you got to be first player if you did that. But then I think the first player should still move clockwise around or something, or somehow else. Because in the original game, obviously, somebody always traveled. I mean, that was, you always did the travel. Where in this, you have, and maybe to tell everybody what we're talking about, you have 3 options to travel. You have a single dice, a double dice, and then 3 dice. Well, I mean, obviously efficiency, and the name of this game is efficiency. How can you more efficiently use your dice than your opponent to get done what you're looking to get done? And
in this game too, for those that don't know, when you place, you can go to a spot somebody's already gone to, but if you go there, you place your die on top, and whatever value the die is that you place on top, you have to pay that in coins. And the other thing is that single die spot for travel, you have to pay some money to do that spot as well. So that's something to take into consideration.
Sure. Now, my overall thoughts on the gameplay. Now, I have played Voyages of Marco Polo a number of times. I mean, it's somewhere probably in the 20 to 30 range at least. And I will say right now, I'm pleasantly happy with this because it does, yes, does it feel like just an expansion? Absolutely. But it feels like a new puzzle. Like I have new thought processes about what to do. One of the other really big things that they changed was how you get resources. Before, it was just a market where you could go and, let's be honest, the first move everybody always makes is if you had a 6 is you went and got 6 camels because it was so important from that market. You don't have that ability to do that anymore. And in fact, I remember the first time I played Richie in this game, I said to him, the black dice do not go as fast as they did in the original game. There is not a automatic, like everybody always gets a black die every turn, because you honestly maybe sometimes don't have an opportunity because you can't get camels as easy. Or, you know, I mean, maybe you get 2 camels and you only have 3. Is it worth it to waste those 3 camels that maybe you need for something else to just go get a black die when you don't have the ability to then just go get a bunch more camels? So they definitely changed that, which I like. I think that makes it a lot more interesting aspect of it. Yeah, and then the new way to get resources in here is there's like only 3 spots, but then they change up each round. Where the bottom part, where as you spoke about, there's the new resource Jade, which Jade has a couple of main functions. You need it kind of to help you travel, but it also helps you to get better resources when you go in.
A lot of resources, especially in the later rounds.
Exactly. And is what we'll talk about here in a moment with the player powers. But one of the games we had, Chad had this player power that every time he completed a contract, he got a Jade, which enabled him to continue to just get those resources. I got that power one of the times I was playing a 2-player game with Brian, and I destroyed him. I mean, I scored like the best score I've ever scored in the game because it was just ridiculous. I mean, that player power was unbelievable because that Jade is that engine to get you rolling in that game. And so, I mean, just absolutely just destroyed with that player power. So maybe that's a good spot to take. I mean, you guys haven't maybe played. I've gotten to play every single player power now. Did you guys notice, or at least Richie, in the few games you've played, have you noticed anything better or worse? Or
I've gotten to play 3 player powers. The only time I've played against the one that you're talking about that Chad had was that game. So I haven't seen it win in any others. But, I mean, if you have a lot of Jade, then you have access to a lot of resources, which if you can't get your hands on Jade, which sometimes you need it, it can make the game tougher, even though there are more spots to travel and so on. So the player powers that I had were the one where you can skip the oases. You still have to pay the cost, but you get 3 points for every oasis that you skip, for every different oasis that you skip within that travel turn. The one where if you improve a guild seal, you get a Jade, plus you only have to place 1 die at that action space. And then the guy who does not have to pay any travel cost, but he can only use the bottom single spot for traveling. Yeah. I mean, honestly, out of those 3, because even though the one that you can move around a lot, if you're playing with people and you are not first, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't always just block them at that spot if he's in the game.
Right.
Just make him get his travel elsewhere.
The one where you have to move, are you talking about the one where you have to move at the 1 spot?
Yeah, where you only get access through the 1 spot. If you are not start player, it may be worth it for you to take that early.
The big one. Well, you can't.
Oh, you can't. That's right. You can't get it back. You just can never take first player.
Yeah. Which is, like I said, my biggest thing of this game that they screwed that up.
First player needs to change.
I'm almost in a home rule type of thing, I think, when I play that game from now on.
It'd be interesting to check online and see if anybody has posted about that, because in our plays, in our groupthink, in our meta, it just seemed like such a strong thing to overcome. But I would say the one thing that helped me with that strategy the last time I had it, because I got pretty far out ahead as well and just kept pumping out contracts, was just having like a guild seal. So when you complete some of those guild seals, you can choose to treat it like a contract and flip it over. And not only then does it help you travel, but you also get income from it. So there's one, I think, that gives you jade, and there's other contracts or spaces that'll give you jade. And so if you get that, then it just like steamrolls. I was drowning in jade.
Not to mention you get a victory point every time you take a jade.
Yeah.
That's
that was awesome.
I mean, the first part of it is amazing, and then that's just like a bonus on top of it. Yeah. In the games that I've played, there is no doubt to me that one that you get the jade is by far the best. I actually, the travel one where you don't have to pay resources, I didn't find to be all that great. I thought it'd be better than it was. The one where you got to skip oases, I thought was really good. It's not that good at all.
No, I mean, unless once again, it depends on how the map is set out. If the map is set out and your goal card aligns with a path that is going to give you some other benefits that will really work with you, then the oasis one is just kind of just a bonus essentially for what you were already going to do.
Right. Sure. Absolutely. And then the other one that I thought was fairly strong was there's one that every time you roll dice, you get to get resources, including your initial rolls, and then also if you roll a black die, you also get. But so like if you roll a 1, you can choose to take a camel, or if you roll a 2, you can choose to get $2, or if you roll doubles, you could choose to get a jade or get a gold or different things like that. And so it just is a resource generating power that you just get continuously. I thought was really, really good.
Yeah.
The worst one is the one where you get 2 travelers and they can go in different.
Which, I mean, that's one of the worst ones in the original.
In the original
one
also, yeah.
Especially in this one since now every link has travel costs, whereas in the original there were some
free
paths that were free.
Yep,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. The other thing, gameplay wise, that I will say that I have noticed, the in-game points, and let me talk real quick about some in-game points for travel. You can collect these different guild symbols, right? They're on the different cities. And at the end of the game, for every different symbol that you have, you're going to add them all up, and then you're going to get a certain number of victory points. I don't think those victory points that you get from it, unless you get way up there, is worth it. I mean, it's like you can get like 6 symbols and it's like 10 points at the end of the game or something. It's not all that great. I'm curious on where their, the play testing was, and I haven't played this game nearly enough to be able to say anything about it, but it seems a little like I'm almost thinking when I now start the game, I don't even care about those different symbols. I'm just after the cities that give me the best actions that give me the best points. Or I mean, not the best points, but the best abilities. The best bonuses. I don't even care now about trying to rack up those points because they're just not worth enough points.
I think it's ancillary. The things that you have to consider with that are, did you finish a contract which gave you an extra symbol, or some of the extra things that add to that? Then that makes it worth it, where you can bump up to the end of the right side of the track. What you were talking about, the furthest amount of symbols, and that's when it becomes a little bit more of a factor.
Possibly, yeah, but I mean that's very rare that, at least from the games that I've played, where I've seen anybody get a significant amount of points from that. But
so do you still think contracts are king?
I think if you can get an engine rolling, I think you will still win with contracts at least. Now, I honestly, I'm not in the belief that the original Voyages of Marco Polo, that it was all just contracts. I mean, I've certainly won games where I've, traveled and done contracts, but I would still say in both games, I think contracts are still you got to still do a good majority of them if you're going to win the game. I don't think you can completely ever ignore contracts. There's no way.
I do like that because in the original, there was an action space where you would go to get those contracts, where now you have to get to a contract city, and from there you can take your contracts.
Yes.
So I do like that. So it is harder to get contracts, and there are like 3 or 4 different cities that will give those to you, but I think that was a good change.
I like that a lot, and it dovetails with the mechanism of having action spots in different cities, because that's really what you want to look at too. You want to look at, okay, so here's what my goal cards are, here is what my character does well, here's what the board layout gives me, and what I can use to maximize that engine, and where I can get to easily and use that action spot.
Just speaking of the travel, they've also got those new 3 mega cities, I almost want to call them, where you get a bonus going there, like a city bonus, but you also have a new die spot and those 3 spots are like amazing. Like one's like
you get a lot of cash
$7, one's get you 4 camels, and one is get you one of each resource. Plus, then if you have those guild symbols flipped, you also get to ding those those guild symbols, which are either camels or jade or straight up victory points. So yeah, so those are really cool.
Overall, I would say that the gameplay in this is really more of the same as far as what you get in a feeling of the game. In Voyages of Marco Polo, it's just the same as, even if you don't win, you still, from my point of view, you still really enjoy the play because you're trying to see how well you played that character's resources and how efficient you got. Now, lots of times in these efficiency Euros, it doesn't feel like there's that much interaction, but I felt like there's a fair amount in this game. So I don't have a problem with that. But again, there is a satisfaction in feeling like you played your puzzle very well, and I think that's where that sits with this gameplay.
Now, I'm curious that at the back of the rule book, and I just thought this was funny, they said that you can integrate this with the original game and the expansion. We don't recommend that, but
it's not recommended.
But you can do that. Did either one of you try the expansion, the original expansion with this? Okay.
No, I'm still just exploring it. So player count wise, do you guys feel, out of your, obviously we haven't had a ton of plays, but do you feel like it plays any better at 2, 3, or 4, or any big differences?
I mean, I like it at all player counts. You're going to have blocking pieces out there if you're playing at 2 and 3 compared to the 4, but I've always thought that it scales well no matter what the player count is.
Yeah.
Agreed. This is not one that I would complain about, going too long in the player count if you were to play at 4, or not getting enough interaction if you were to play at 2. So I'm happy with all my plays of it at the different counts.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I have no problem at 2. They do some good blocking to make it, enjoyable at 2, but like you said, I mean, 3 and 4, I don't think it outstays its welcome. It's still a solid game. A little bit different on maybe, your action spots maybe get money's a little more important because obviously you're going to have to go on top of people a little bit more. But yeah, to me, player count, pretty wide open. So what about replayability and variability? Chad, what do you feel?
I would say this game is pretty strong on it in that you have all those different characters to play with and their powers that you're trying to be efficient at, in addition to how much board layout initially affects your gameplay, right? I can't remember, and Clef, you'll have to help me on this. I can't remember if you see all the cards that are in the game in the layout and it's just different, or if there are some cards that don't come out within the game.
Well, the one other thing that's different with this game is there's a new action spot that they put out 2 city cards, and those city cards change each round. So that's really the only variability that you see during the game. Now, obviously, I mean, different cards come out, at the beginning of each game or whatever, and there's quite a big, stack of cards. But yeah, that's probably the only variability in the game is those cards switching out.
Perhaps the contracts, because you usually don't go through the whole thing of contracts, I don't think.
Oh, sure. But I mean, the contracts are all pretty similar usually.
Right,
I mean, there's not a lot of variation there. So what do you think, Richie?
Yeah, I mean, as far as replayability, I think it's definitely there. It's the amount, and when I played with Jessica, it's been a while since she's played Voyages, the original, and she's like, there's a lot going on this board. It is a busy board because there's a lot of spaces, there's a lot to look at, especially if you have not played the game in a long time. The variable setup of that board, I think that alone puts it in a good place.
I definitely feel the same way. I mean, I feel like every time there's a new kind of path to victory that I'm looking at. I mean, it's a different, as you said, I mean, the board layout really makes a big difference about what am I going to do. There's also the variability, like I said, in the market now. So you have different tiles that come out. Now, there's the same 6 tiles that you go through. So you're going to see the same ones, but they can come out in different ways, and sometimes that can make a big difference on what your plan is. So I perfectly think this is a game that, I can still play many a times, replayability, and it still gives me enough variability that, that I still enjoy it. By the way, back to Corey's question, Newton, I do not change my strategy. I just destroy when I play it. Never. I just thought about that question.
Got it.
All right. Well, I think we're pretty good, guys. Should we wrap a bow on this sucker and give our wonderful rating?
I think so.
All right, Richie, give us that wonderful Punchboard Paradise rating scale.
So Punchboard Paradise we rate on a 6-point scale, with a 1 being a game that makes you miserable and a 6 being a game that could possibly be in your top 10 of all time. Chad, what do you give Marco Polo II?
Well, the only thing that I haven't talked about yet in this review, and the only thing that affects my score maybe more than the two of you, is actually the price point of this game. So the MSRP on this game is $70. I think Miniature Market has it for $55 right now.
Mm-hmm.
It is an expansion. We've talked about that. That's a lot to pay for an expansion. Now, there are other games. I think Underwater Cities has an expansion that's about that much or nearly, but you're getting these huge player boards and a ton of cards and different stuff, and it's, you know what you're getting. I feel like this is an expansion. So for me, I haven't purchased the game. I think I eventually will purchase the game, but I'm going to wait for it to go down in price in the hopes that it will, because it's just a bit too much for what I feel like is an expansion. That being said, I really like the gameplay. It's more of the same feeling that I get when I play Voyages of Marco Polo, which, as you know, just from our past drafts and talk of the game, it's one of my favorites. I like that game a lot. It's a really great, fun feeling Euro where I just feel good about making my character as efficient as possible. I'm going to give this a 4. The reason it doesn't bump up to higher than that is really just because of the price point. It's a low 4, but it's still a great game, and I would highly suggest anybody who was dismayed by the strategies in Voyages of Marco Polo to still give this one a look, because you might enjoy it quite a bit more. And if you already know you love it, definitely at least be on the lookout for it. And you'll have to decide if that price is for you. What about you, Clef?
First, I mean, Chad, I see your point on the price. However, my rebuttal to that is there's a lot of people out there who have never played the Voyages of Marco Polo, and they can go and buy a copy of Marco Polo II, and it's not an expansion where they have to have the original game. So I understand the price point. And quite honestly, to get those better resources, I mean, I'd have paid about $90 for that game. But I have been, talking about the big elephant in the room is obviously, is it worth it to purchase if you already have the Voyages of Marco Polo? And I would say, for me, it depends on how much you've played the Voyages of Marco Polo. If you've only played, and like where Richie said, Jessica hadn't played in a long time, probably didn't feel that much of a different game to her, just a couple of different mechanisms and, whatever. But for someone like me who had played, the Voyages of Marco Polo's as many times as I had, this was a refreshing change. I really feel like it changed the game a lot. I felt like there was a lot of new, different things that they did well. Couple of things that they didn't do so well, like with the first player marker changing. But I think they did mostly very, very well. And I think this is well worth it. If you're a big fan of Voyages, I definitely say it's worth it. I think it's worth the $55 price tag. I don't know, maybe not 70, but usually, most people aren't paying the standard price or whatever. But anyways, I enjoy this game. And this is tough for me because since it is so similar now, Voyages of Marco Polo it's a darn near top 10 game of all time for me. I like it that much. So if you're going to go off of that, it's a pretty easy rating for me, right? And as far as, and I hate to put this down on recording, this is definitely a game that's probably going to be in my top 10 for 2020. Probably. Okay.
It's a good thing that this
is it the best game you've played so far this year?
It's a good thing that it's a COVID year, and there maybe might not be.
Yeah, I won't have to worry about
top 10.
What's going on, but no, it's a very, very solid game. However, I for some reason, and I don't know why, and maybe because it is just kind of the same thing, and yet just a little bit different, I have a hard time saying a 6. So I'm really going to say, I'm going to give it a 5. And like I said, because it all depends on where your status is of like I said, if you only played Voyages a couple of times, is it a game I think you must have? I don't think so. But if you've played Voyages a lot, the same things I've said. So I'm going to struggle here, but I'm going to say a 5, but a solid 5. This is a very good game, a very good implementation. And, if you want to say it, it's a great expansion and well worth it. And I think they did a great job. And, the pieces are bigger. So that's a big plus there. All right, Richie, finish us off.
Well, Voyages of Marco Polo is a I think it's been a top 3 game for me for the past 3 years. So this is something I was definitely looking forward to, and it didn't disappoint. And I look at it more like Chad is saying, as it's an expansion. I know it is a standalone game, and if you have never played Voyages of Marco Polo, man, it's tough on which to tell you to get. For me, and I kind of struggle with this as well, just like Clef, on giving it a 6. Obviously, a top 3 game. The original is top 3 game for me, and this really isn't much different. The things that keep it from a 6, just as a standalone game, is one, the starting player not moving, or at least for us, it has not moved. That's a ding against it. And with the player powers, and this is more just because the original has been expanded and we have more player powers than what was in the original base game, that one player power being as strong as it is, it makes it tough to put this at the same 6. So it's coming in at a 5 for me as well. It's a great game. Check it out if you get the chance, and honestly, just get both and find a big box and just throw them both in there.
Well, what if you have a 3D bit space insert for the original Marco Polo? I can't do that.
Well, Ryan, get on top of making a crate for Marco Polo and Marco Polo II.
Oh, there we go. All right. All right, so that was our review of Marco Polo II.
With a 4 from me, a 5 from Clef, and a 5 from Richie.
Okay, well, Richie, now it's time. Now it is time to dish out your
little pain.
punishment. Little pain.
And just to go over the results for our last draft, which was low rules and high strategy, and one of us had some questionable picks, and I came in first place with 50% of the vote. Clef came in a respectable second place with 36.5% of the votes.
Hey, that's not bad.
That's not bad at all.
You had Concordia.
Yeah,
that's not bad.
Very good. Well, I mean, you put your son's name in as one of my games instead of Devon, but
no one voted for you because of Devon.
And then Chad came in last place with 13.5%.
Ooh.
I've been thinking about this punishment because the last couple of times, Clef's been sneaking in some positive things for what he has. So before I hand out this punishment, I want you to understand, Chad. One, what I'm going to ask for, it may not even be 100% true as far as what I want. I want an apology for a couple of things.
Whoa.
Now, one of these things may not be your fault, but you're going to apologize anyways. And actually, Clef might want in on this apology. This is for you too, buddy.
Oh, all right. I'm liking this.
But the first one, which I am going to blame you, because Alvin VR thinks I'm an idiot. Because
that was Chad's fault.
Here we go. You only get one. You know you only get one.
I'm sliding in two. I'm pulling a Chad here. I'm sliding in two.
I allow it.
Thank you. So I want you to apologize for that post on social media. Second one, I want you to apologize for the fact that we've been playing 18 Chesapeake online for, it feels like half
forever.
a year. And once again, that may not be your fault, but you're going to apologize for it anyways. So I would like to hear that apology and make it good.
All right, start your timer. Okay. I do want to apologize to you for not teaching the game well enough that you would not suffer being embarrassed by Alvin VR, because I posted your train picture and he said, "What the heck is that green player doing?" That was my fault for not coaching you through the game better, and I will take 100%.
All right, hurry up and get to
culpability
the
with that. As far as 18 Chesapeake, I'm really sorry that on 18XX games with Toby Mao, I haven't had him implement a better system for telling you when your turn is up.
You're going to take the blame for this.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry that I did not force Toby to implement a better strategy, because
you're pushing this off. You're going to take the blame for this.
Who takes their turns faster than I do? Who?
You're pushing this off. This is not how this is going.
I am telling you, I am not to blame for taking it too slow. I am to blame for not finding a better system with Toby to alert you of your turn.
I don't know, Clef. What do you feel about that second half of the first half of the apology?
First half was a very good apology, yes.
If you want an apology from me for getting you involved in 18 Chesapeake Online, then I will take 100% culpability for
Okay,
that.
I'll take that.
We started that game before we did the
even did a review. Yeah.
I just want you to know there were a week sometimes in between turns in an auction
all right, let's
game
go to
that
the
have
end
nothing to
of
do
the
with me.
show.
Well, on that note, guys, let's go play some Not 18 Chesapeake.
Folks, we will have some kind of an episode for you in 2 weeks. It'll probably be a draft, but I'm sure it will be entertaining. And I won't make anybody play any train games in the meantime. Punch Bunch, take care of yourselves and each other.
All right, everybody, have a good night.
Thanks for listening.
Punchboard Paradise would like to thank our loyal listeners as well as the publishers and designers that have provided review copies. You can find us at punchboardparadise@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at Punchboarders. We are on Instagram at Punchboard Paradise and Facebook at Punchboard Paradise.
Yeah. Well, for me, I would say, what would I say? Hold on. What's the question?
Okay, this goes at the end of the episode, please.